Hello, my name is Aaron Thomas. We thank you for joining the Ed Thomas Family Foundation Leadership Academy. Obviously, it is much different this year. We miss having you here in person, but we are extremely optimistic and hopeful that today will be just as impactful. The reason the Ed Thomas Family Foundation Leadership Academies have been successful and worked is because of the young people, because of the teachers, the coaches, the directors. And it's not what happens on our one day together, but it's the impact we make the other 364 days out of the year when we're going to impact and change our communities. You know, directors, students, I encourage you today after this, log on, type in Simon Sinek, adapting to change. Nothing is the same for us right now at school. Whether we get to be in school all day, every day, whether we have to wear masks, whether we have to be 6 feet apart, nothing is the same. But those who rise up, who get the most out of things, are those willing to adapt and change. And Simon Sinek has a great clip, and I encourage you, go on, read that. And as the Ed Thomas Family Foundation, we knew we had to do something different. We couldn't bring everybody here as much as we love to. We got to adapt. And in our society, in our world today, we need young people and leaders who are willing to adapt, not just to COVID, but when you look at our political landscape, how can you be better? How can you be different? What can you do to make your school, your community, the place everybody wants to be a part of? As I kind of get started on my story, I'm going to share a little bit of the things I learned from my dad and hopefully also challenge you with some thoughts, some things to think about in your personal life. You know, I can honestly tell you from the time I was a third grade student, I knew I wanted to be a teacher and a coach. I knew I wanted to work with young people. I knew I wanted to be at school. And the reason why is because each and every day when my dad went up to the high school, to his job, to the weight room, to football practice, I didn't think my dad had a job. I didn't think he had a career. I just really thought he liked being around young people. You see, he had what we call passion. He loved what he did each and every day. And my hope for each and every one of you young people watching this today is that you grow up and you don't have jobs, you don't have careers, but you have passions. Because when you're passionate about something, each and every person around you is attracted to it. They get excited. They know you're not showing up just for a paycheck. You're showing up to make a difference. And for me, that is what I saw in my dad. And as a young person, I can remember leaving Parkersburg Elementary to go to football practice every day after school. And my dad would get all the football guys around him, and when he'd talk, I was one of those sponges. I was around and I wanted to hear every word he said. And when he'd speak, one thing he said that I stuck with me for a long time, he'd say, you never know when you're going to have an opportunity, and you never know when you're going to have a platform, but you have to be ready to make the most of those moments. And I will tell you, growing up, I always thought platforms and opportunities came because of good things. If I work hard, if I do what I'm supposed to do as a student, if I'm on the honor roll, good things happen. If I'm a leader in my school, maybe I'm on National Honor Society. If I'm a leader of my sports team and I show up in the weight room, or if I'm an active member of my FFA, or I'm good in speech and drama and I show up for the plays, the musicals, do all those things, I get a big role, I get a lead, I get to be the captain, I get to be a starter. And I always thought hard work plays into our platforms and our opportunities. That's how that works, all good. But what I honestly learned the most from my dad was not in the successes, not when he won state championships, not when he was National Coach of the Year. But what I learned the most from my dad is when he faced adversity in the toughest of moments. What I saw when we'd lose a football game, my dad never once blamed the players, the students. Never once did he badmouth his assistant coaches. When we lost, he always took responsibility as the head coach and said, I got to do a better job getting our young people prepared. I didn't have our young people ready for what we were going to see tonight. I got to be better. The flip side of that, when we won, I never once heard my dad said, I did this or I did that. It was once again, the praise went to his assistant coaches, and went to his team, and went to the community. That's leadership. But in hear my dad on platforms and opportunities, like I said, the first time I saw a platform and an opportunity as a negative came May 25th, 2008, when Parkersburg was hit by an EF5 tornado. On that day, 7 people lost their lives. The high school was completely destroyed. My parents' home and everything they owned was completely destroyed. And as I left Union High School, where I was assistant principal and athletic director, got to my parents' home and saw all the devastation, I will tell you, for the first time in my life, I thought of losing my mom and dad at a young age. Because when you saw the devastation of the storm and you saw houses completely destroyed, I was certain there was no way people survived this. And finding out both my mom and dad were okay was absolutely relieved to see that. But watching my dad in the days, the weeks, the months after, and his leadership after the tornado hit, that's where I learned my most lessons. You know, that tornado hit, and it would have been real easy to feel sorry for ourselves. It would have been real easy to get down and say, this is such a big task, there's no way we're ever going to rebuild this. But from day one, my dad had this vision, this thought. He was, we're going to play football here in 100 days. He also said, we got to get the school up and re-going, and he worked hard with our past superintendent, Mr. Thompson, and our community leaders to get the school rebuilt. And he told my mom, Jane, we got to get our house, one of the first ones rebuilt in Parkersburg, to lead by example. Now, my dad worked tirelessly at school and did all kinds of great things, but my mother did everything for my parents' house. They were able to rebuild. They are right back on the same place where that house once stood. But the leadership in the toughest of moments, the platform, the opportunity, with all the news cameras coming to Parkersburg to show all the devastation, every time my dad got interviewed, he talked about the positive. He said, we're going to dust ourselves off, we're going to get ourselves up, and we're going to move forward. The thing when I heard my dad speak, never once did he ever use the word I. Great leaders, young people, never make it about themselves. It's about we. It takes all of us to make change. It takes all of us to get a task done. It takes all of us to be successful and win a sport, to do a group project at school, whatever it might be. And I'll tell you right now with COVID, it takes all of us to remain in school. Whether it's wearing our mask when we're can't social distance, whether it's taking the precautions, if we don't feel perfect, we stay home that day and sacrifice even if we have to miss a practice or miss a game. It's being responsible, but it's we. And after that tornado, for me to see that example was a great thing for me to learn from. You know, little did I know in watching that tornado rebuilding what it meant to my dad, to have all of our alumni, former players, former staff members, former people who lived in Parkersburg come back home. Because one other lesson my dad loved to tell each and every one of us is that never forget where you came from. And he'd say, when you become successful, make sure at those times you come back if your community ever needs you. And my dad would get absolutely teary-eyed when former students, staff members, community members who hadn't been here in 10, 20, 30 years came back to help. Our 4 NFL guys came back after that tornado. They came and helped. They didn't do it so everybody'd say, oh, look at those NFL guys. They came back. They did it because Parkersburg meant something to them. And the reason it meant something to them is when they were students, just like you, the way their teachers, coaches, community poured into them. Teachers, community leaders, if you're watching this, we have an obligation to make sure our young people know they come from somewhere special. To create an environment where they know they can become the absolute best they can be. We need to create where they never forget where they came from. That they're proud to call our school home. And while it doesn't work for everybody, it's our obligation, our job to reach out to each and every one of our students. Not just our easy students who get A's or our leaders in National Honor Society or those who are out for our sports team. We need to find each and every student and let them know we care for them this year more than others. It's not just about grades. It's about interactions. It's about making sure they know how much we missed them the last 5.5 months before we could get back to school. You know, for me, my platform, my opportunity came June 24, 2009, on easily the worst day of my life. On that day, my dad was down in the weight room like many other days since he came here in 1975. Former student comes in, tragically shoots my father in front of 22 young people, killing him. And all of a sudden, every major news network, all kinds of media shows up to Parkersburg. And when they come here to Parkersburg and they show that devastation, I think back to my dad and how he responded to that tornado. You see, my platform, my opportunity came at 3 o'clock that day when we did a press conference. And after my dad was killed, I had the opportunity to go to the hospital to see him. And as we went home, the Department of Criminal Investigation was already at my mom's house. And they met with us and they said, well, we need a press statement. We need a release from your family. So on that day, they were telling us everything we should say. And I just looked at my mom and said, Mom, do you care if I just go and I'll speak on behalf of our family? My brother Todd at this time was still in Jamaica. He wasn't even home when all this was going on. But as I spoke that day, a couple of things I could tell you. Number one, nothing had sank in what had happened. Number two, when I spoke, I tried to say exactly what my dad would have said had he been able to be there to speak for himself. Because I knew if Ed Thomas is going to have any kind of legacy whatsoever, it'd be how his family responded. Not when he was Coach of the Year, that was easy. but how do we respond in the toughest of moments and the toughest of circumstances? Because on that day, if we get up there and we blame this or say that, everything my dad worked his entire life for goes right out the window in a matter of seconds, all on how his family responds. Young people, unfortunately, I can promise each and every one of you, you are all going to go through tough things in your life. You're going to have things happen to you that you do not ask for and you do not deserve, but unfortunately, you're the only one who decides how do you respond to it. When I lost my dad, I had things come back to my mind to help me get through. Things he told me growing up as a kid or that I heard on the practice field, and I'm going to share them with you today. Because we'll all have adversity. We'll all have tough moments. But I hope this helps you get through. The first thing my dad loved to tell us is life's 10% what happens to you, but more importantly, 90% how you choose to respond. See, I could be bitter. I could be angry. I could feel sorry for myself that somebody killed my dad. But at the end of the day, all I do is cheat my 3 boys out of the dad they deserve. I cheat my wife, the husband she deserves. And those young people I get to lead at Applington Parkersburg would be cheated the educational leader, all because I can't get past June 24th, 2009. I had to move on. I wasn't going to let Mark Becker determine who I was going to be. And because of how our family responded, which my mom gets almost all the credit for, I've been blessed with unbelievable experiences and opportunities to travel around our country to speak, to go share our story and have a book written. Something horrendous and something I'd give all the money I've made speaking, I'd give every dollar back to have another day with my dad. But unfortunately, that's not an option. So how do we respond to the toughest of circumstances? Because life truly is 10% what happens, but more importantly, 90% how we choose to respond. Second thing I often heard as a kid, my dad would love to tell me, is somebody out there has it worse than you do, so stop complaining. And that's so true. Young people, I was blessed with a great dad, the dad I had for 29, 30 years of my life. Not every young person has the dad I got to have. My dad grew up the son of an alcoholic. First 18 years of my dad's life was absolutely nothing like mine. My dad dies at 58 years old. Never once did my dad have a drop of alcohol. That changed his childhood? None. But it changed mine. Because he decided to be different. He decided to be better. And young people, I understand when sometimes your parents are strict or maybe financially you don't have what other kids in your school have. Maybe you haven't been blessed with abilities that other kids and you think it'd be so much easier to be somebody else. And on those tough days, I challenge you to look around. Because I understand in your entire high school, there's only one student that can have it the worst. Only one. Doesn't mean life's easy. Doesn't mean we don't have challenges. But I promise you somebody out there would trade places with you. And we're fortunate to be in Iowa, I think. The education, the experiences you young people get are not everywhere. So on our toughest of days, make sure it doesn't get to be poor me. Not saying you can't have bad days, but don't let that consume you. Don't get into a pity party. If you truly struggle with mental health or you struggle with how you feel, I promise you somebody in your school wants to help you, whether it's a coach, a teacher, a counselor, a director. Somebody there cares for you. Find that person on those tough days. The last thing I often heard as a young person from my dad that he loved to tell us is the greatest gift God's given us is the power to choose. Young people, each and every day, you make a choice on how you respond to that day. One of the greatest things you control is your attitude. Does your attitude make people around you better? Does it make people worse? Does your impact and your influence in your building get the best out of other people, or do you tear people down? Is your glass half full? Is it half empty? Your impact, your choice each and every day of what are you going to make of that day determines who we are as people. That's what separates us from animals. We get the power to choose. And when I speak on the power to choose, one thing I got to talk about. Young people, you have to make sure you set your own goals each and every day. You have to determine who are you going to be as a person. Seniors who are watching this, next year you're going to go to college. When you get to that college campus or you go to work or you go to the service, whatever it is you're going to do next year, you got to understand. Nobody knows who you are. Your professors, teachers, they don't know your study habits. They don't know your high school grade point average. They don't know that you were an athlete, that you were the lead in the musical. They don't know those things. You reestablish it. Your friendship groups, they don't know, are you a person who walks a straight and narrow? You don't drink, you don't smoke, you don't do drugs. Because you're going to be given that temptation. You're going to be asked again. And my question is, have you determined who you're going to be? So when those opportunities and those things come your way, you're set on what's going to happen. Freshmen and sophomores who are watching this, what are you going to be about in high school? Because if you don't decide, somebody else will decide for you. All of a sudden, it's going to be a Friday or Saturday night. You might be in your school's parking lot. Upperclassman says, hey, hop in the car. Let's go for a ride. And all of a sudden, they pull out something to drink. They smoke out weed to smoke. Are you going to be a part of that? Are you going to do that? Or are you going to stand for something? The power to choose, young people. It's the most powerful gift each and every one of us have. But we have to make choices. We have the power to make the choice, but understand you do not have the power to choose your consequence. So if you make poor decisions, are you willing to take the consequence that may come that way? Young people, driving and texting, are you willing to make that choice to do that? Are you okay with the consequence of possibly killing somebody? Drinking and driving, same deal. The power to choose, such an important piece we get to do each and every day, and something I took from my dad through that adversity. He made the choice every day to be positive, to be optimistic, and to work hard to rebuild. That was going to be his mindset. That was his mentality. What is yours? What are you going to stand for? What is it you're going to do? When we talk about standing for something, my dad's big thing and what our foundation is based off was faith, family, football. That was his priorities. And we gave him an awful hard time that family was about this much ahead of football, but we were second. At the end of the day, though, what I noticed being around my dad is all of a sudden people who used profanity and swore and talked about others and did this and that. When my dad came around, they somehow changed their tune. If you want to be a leader, young people, my question is this: do you change around other people, or do other people change around you? Everybody may not agree with you. Some might even talk bad about you because they want to see you fail. But I will promise you, they will respect you if you stand for something. In our society today, that's not easy. Because now it seems like, well, if we can't get along, then we got to hate each other. And if I don't think like you, dress like you, believe like you, then I got to hate you. And somewhere our country has got off on the way wrong foot with this, displayed by our two presidential candidates in their debate. That's not what it looks like. That's not leadership. That's arguing. That's divisiveness. If you want to be a difference maker, we got to find a way to impact and influence others, even if they don't agree with us, even if they're not exactly like us. Be different. Be the change. Be caring. All that said, I encourage you, still stand for something. Know who you're going to be about. Know what matters most in your life. And don't feel like you have to change or go with the mainstream just because that's where everybody's going. You will be respected. It's not always easy. Young people, I don't think you always understand your influence and your impact. I think our most impactful people in our community are our young people. In a small town like this, every young person, every little kid in our elementary wants to be just like the high schoolers. How they dress, how they talk, what they wear is what they see our high school kids do. That's a big responsibility. High schoolers, I also challenge you to think. Give me one other activity that can fill an auditorium like this, a gymnasium or a football stadium. The only people that can do that in our entire community is our young people. And while our adults don't expect you to win every game or sing every perfect note in the musical, if you give your best, if you represent them in a positive way when you're not at school and you're out in the community, they'll be behind you because you represent them. You know, one thing I talk to our kids about, our students about, if you're going to go to Waterloo, Cedar Falls, which is our nearest biggest town, and if you're going to go out and you're going to act like a complete idiot, make sure you wear absolutely nothing that says Appleton Parkersburg High School. Because you represent all 3,000 residents of Appleton Parkersburg. Young people, it's not just about you at your school. It's not just about you when you wear your school colors or your community. Out in the community, your colors, your logos out in the community. You represent everybody who lives in your town, everybody who goes to your school. And that's a responsibility. And a lot of that comes down to what you stand for, what you believe, the pride you take in yourself, the pride you take in your building, but your impact. Those young people want to be you. If you go into Casey's or Quick Start and you're using profanity, you're being disrespectful, that's what they're going to think's cool. How you talk to your parents when you see them. Are you rude? How do you wear your clothes? That's what's stylish. That's what they want to do. And I got a poem that we're going to show and that you're going to have, and I challenge you, young people. The name of the poem is Little Eyes Upon You, and it goes like this. There are little eyes upon you, and they're watching you day and night. There are little ears that quickly take in every word you say. There are little hands all eager to do anything you do, and a little person who's dreaming of the day they'll be like you. You're the little person's idol. You're the wisest of the wise. In their mind about you, no suspicions ever rise. They believe in you devoutly and hold all that you say and do. They will say and do it your way when they grow up to be just like you. There's a wide-eyed little person who believes you're always right, and their eyes are always open and they're watching day and night. You are setting the example every day in all you do for the little person who's waiting to grow up to be just like you. And high schoolers, I challenge you and ask you, do we want a school full of you? Do we want a community full of you? Because that's what's going to happen. Seniors, juniors, how you act, the example, what you set for a culture in your school will have effects. Because it's probably going to be the next 2 years. The sophomores and the freshmen, they're going to follow you. They're going to watch you. If it's okay to do drugs, smoke, drink, do all those things in your school, if it's okay not to give your best effort in your classes, not take challenging coursework and just skim by, that's going to be your culture. Because as a high school principal, I can want as much as I want to have the great school with great opportunities, strong programs, strong academics. If the young student leaders don't buy in and set that example, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Leadership comes from you. What our playgrounds look like come from you. That's not a responsibility to take lightly. And as leaders who signed up and attended today, I know you're up to that task. I know you're up to that challenge. And I know you are going to, if you come from a school that maybe doesn't have the best culture right now, you're going to be the change makers. You're going to be different. You know, young people, I need you to understand leadership is not a sometimes thing. It's got to be every single day, because you can't say you're going to stand for this and be about that and then go off and make poor decisions. In our culture today, I think we live in an Instagram culture. We live in a Snapchat or a TikTok culture where it's instant, it's here. I got to compare myself to you. I got to put you down so I'm better. You know, I had no idea. I didn't know what a filter was. How many Instagram pictures aren't even really who we are as people? We change our eye colors. We change what we look like. We change our hair. Mind-blowing to me. Be you. Be comfortable in being you. Are you perfect? No. Is anyone? Don't compare all the time to everyone else and think, oh, if I was only like this, or if I was skinnier, or if I was this, or if I was tall. Don't worry about it. Be the best you can be and work on yourself. But don't compare to others. And the biggest challenge, young people, is this. Don't feel the need to tear somebody else down to build you up. That's not leadership. If you actually have a problem with a person, if somebody's saying something negative about you on social media, I challenge you to confront them in a loving and caring way. Find a way to agree and to disagree in an agreeable way. But don't think you got to go after somebody else to lift yourself. That's not leadership. That's a really, really bad character trait. Be happy for others' successes. That's going to be a person people want to be around. That's going to be a person people want to be. But don't get so caught up in all the social media. Don't get so caught up in what do I have to look like in my perfect life. And this is adults do it too, young people. Why do you think we have HGTV? It's because of the comparison trap. Everybody wanting to compare to everybody else and show this perfect life, this perfect image, going to the pumpkin patches, drinking our pumpkin lattes with all our flannel on. That's not always life. Don't think about what I don't have or what I'm not. Focus on who you are and what you do have and grow it and make it better and be different. Young people, I challenge you, don't have a fixed mindset. Be a growth mindset person. Don't be afraid of new challenges. Don't be afraid of falling and failing, because you don't fail unless you don't get back up and you don't try. A way bigger failure is those who are scared to death to ever put themselves out there, to ever give their absolute best, study for a test, and if you get a B, that's okay. Go out for something a sport, a fine art, get involved in a program, FFA, do speech, whatever. Don't be afraid to fail. A way bigger travesty is never trying. In our society today, too many people are not willing to do that because of what others might say or how that might look, or I might be embarrassed. Go all in. Put yourself out there. People will respect you for it. You'll make your school experience so much better by being involved. Young people, when you live your life in our society today, you may fool your mom and dad. You might be one of those people who say all the right things when they're around the adults. And you may fool your teachers and your coach. Some of you're going to fool mom and dad because they want to be fooled. They don't want to know the real you. They don't want to know the decisions you're making. They don't want to know how you treat other people. They will gladly be fooled. Young people, you're not going to fool your peers. Kids in your school, they know who you are. They know how you act. They know what you say. They know what you're like when coaches, directors, teachers aren't there. That's the real you. And young people, at the end of the day, I promise you this, each and every morning and every night, when you go into that bathroom and you look in the mirror, you'll never ever fool yourself. Be honest with yourself. Yes, you're not perfect, but you can always work to be better. But more importantly, are you a good person? Do you care about others? Do you go out of your way to do something for somebody else, even if they can never ever repay you? That's called being a servant leader. And that's what our world needs an awful lot more of. I truly hope today you've been able to get something out of this presentation. I hope you get something out of each speaker, because we had great speakers. And there's information that applies to different people, and it's going to be different times in your life. But I hope you take something from it. I hope this is not a one-day deal. Another poem I'm sharing with you. Excuse me, it's titled, Leaders Are People Like You. Leaders take chances like everyone else. They fear failing, but they refuse to let fear control them. Leaders don't give up. When life gets rough, they hang in until the going gets better. Leaders are flexible. They realize there is more than one way and are willing to try others. Winners know they're not perfect. They respect their weakness while making the most of their strengths. Leaders fall down, but they don't stay down. They stubbornly refuse to let a fall keep them from climbing. Leaders don't blame fate for their failure nor luck for their successes. Leaders accept responsibility for their lives. Leaders are positive thinkers who see good in all things. From the ordinary, they make the extraordinary. Winners believe in the path they have chosen, even when it's hard and even when others can't see where they're going. Leaders are patient. They know his goal is only as worthy as the effort required to achieve it. Leaders are people like you, and they make this world a better place. Young people, why I do what I do as a high school principal is because of you. You give me hope. You give me optimism. I know our country is going to be better because of you. I get to see it each and every day. Impact your communities. Be a change maker. Put yourself out there. Don't compare to everybody else. Don't think you have to be perfect. But I do challenge you to think you have to be better each and every day. Every day is an opportunity. What are we going to do with it? My last challenge for you today, young people, and even teachers, coaches who are watching, I challenge you today to take time to thank those people who have impacted your life. Take a moment, handwrite them a note. A text is good. A handwritten note in this world today is an unbelievable treasure. I want you to handwrite a note to somebody who's impacted you in a positive way. Maybe it's mom or dad. Maybe it's a grandparent. Maybe it's a coach. Maybe it's your teacher. Maybe it's a youth pastor. I don't know. Maybe it was an upperclassman who invested in you and took time. Take time, handwrite them a note, and say thank you. Tell them what they mean to you. You will not believe how that will inspire and lift those people up. The encouragement that will give. It also is an unbelievable great reflection upon yourself. What a great habit to get in, handwrite notes of encouragement, of thank you. That's what difference makers do. We thank you for being a part of the Ed Thomas Family Foundation Leadership Academy. I can't wait to hear and see what you do after today to make your communities better. God bless, and thanks for being a part of this.